Hello and welcome, all you wonderful pod people listening or watching from around the world. Thanks for joining the Now We Know Better podcast. My name is Wim van der Zam. I am your bus driver today, guiding us through the next hour or so, probably longer because my two colleagues a little long-winded at times. And although the wheels on the bus do go round and round, they also can sometimes fall off. Welcome to the Now We Know Better podcast. Today, we'll be working moderately hard to bring you information, entertainment, and a few opinions that pretty much only we value. Also, with my two pod colleagues, we're going to chat about land acknowledgements and property rights. A pretty hot topic right now, particularly in British Columbia.
A big decision.
And we'll also learn about the construction of a super El Nino. I've never heard of a super El Nino, but I bet it's super duper. We're going to discuss we'll talk a little bit about FIFA, not too much. Football, soccer coming to Canada.
Oh, yeah.
And finally, the dodo bird. Has it really gone the way of the dodo bird? All in no particular order, of course. Lots to chat about today. What else? We've got the email bag just around the corner because we love to hear from our loyal listener. And everyone always seems to enjoy a world-renowned point-counterpoint segment. My two pod colleagues dueling head-to-head over a current affair topic. Let's see how it plays out between David and Tom today. We've got a fun one today. Our predictions topic is going to be who will win the British Columbia Conservative leadership race. And it's actually results are coming like within the hour here. Quite a tight race. I have already marked and locked my predictions, so let's see what these other two slobs think. And speaking of slobs, let's welcome the other two pod members, Telecommunications Goliath, Mr. Tom McDonald. Hello, Tommy.
Hello, Wim. Boy, it's been cool, typical May weather here in British Columbia, but beautiful nonetheless. I love it when it's a little bit cool, not too hot, like you have to suffer through in Arizona, 30 plus degrees of heat, unrelenting.
It's funny. It's currently 30 degrees here. I'm right now. I'm in Winnipeg, and 30 degrees here. It's warmer than Arizona right now. So, yeah, I just follow the sunshine and warmth. Why not?
Why not?
And look at that. Look who's here, Mr. Know-It-All himself and global property management mogul, David van der Zam. Hello, David.
Hey, good afternoon. Gee, we missed you yesterday, Wim, on the golf course. Tom and I, we had a good time.
Tom's teeing something up as we
We
speak.
scored like in the hundreds, and we showed that course who was boss. Right, Tom?
We sure did, and we found out really quick who was boss.
Well, speaking of teeing things up, that's the cue. We're going to go straight to the email bag.
Email bag. What's inside the email bag? Click it, open, zip, unzip. Let's see what you all just ship. Email bag.
This week, our email bag question comes from Denise P. of Montreal, Quebec. Am I pronouncing that right, Tom? Denise?
Denise, yeah.
Yeah, Denise.
Yeah.
And is that could be a guy or a girl? Am I right?
Yes.
Well, these days, it could, yeah. Absolutely.
It's not very nice. All right. Well, thanks for writing to us, Denise. Always appreciate questions from our loyal listeners. Denise's question is this. Hello, gentlemen. Thanks for the entertainment. I've heard that the combined federal and provincial debt is projected to be $2.4 trillion for 25-26. When I do the math, that's nearly $60,000 per resident of Canada, and the debt keeps piling up. Can you give me your thoughts as to whether I should be worried about this? Tom, can you calm Denise's fear, or maybe not?
I can do both. I can. Did she say whether she was older or younger?
No.
Okay.
Quick email.
If she's older, I'd say don't worry about it. Your runway is fairly short, so the problem will be passed on. If you're
That's calming her nerves that she's just going to be dead soon, so it doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, kind of sort of.
Okay. All right.
If she is young, she's 20, then it's going to be challenging. I mean, you're saying, okay, because you're saying $60,000, that is the current total debt share per what, resident, individual, citizen? What is that?
She said resident. So I'm assuming she took $2.4 trillion and divided it by
Like 42 million?
42 million. Yeah. Which
So take out the children and the pensioners, and
and
the obligation falls to the other people.
Yeah, so it's not 60,000 per person. Realistically, it's probably closer to 150,000 a person, maybe even more.
Yep.
Yeah, because the 42 million is not really contributing residents or contributing citizens. So I mean, Dave might have a different opinion. The only way out of this now that I can see, because they're not going to cut back social programs, and they seem to be uncurious about any corruption that's going on within the social programs. And we know that there is a lot of corruption, which could be 10, 20, maybe 30% of the total cost of some of the social programs out there. If they're even interested in starting to look for that, and they're not, then the only way other way out is to tax the hell out of everybody or grow the economy. And right now, the Carney government has made a lot of noises, platitudes, and slogans about growing the economy. And he's claiming that the economy is growing a little bit. We need it to grow like probably 5 percentage points or more per year, and not have an increase in government spending to actually outgrow the debt. And so there's ways to do this. I just don't see that we're doing it enough. So I'd be concerned if I were her. Maybe vote for a different party if you're ensconced in Bloc Québécois or Parti Québécois, or you're a staunch liberal supporter. Maybe you need to look for alternatives out there.
I'd recommend that. Dave?
Yeah, I'd be very concerned on a number of levels. I mean, you took another way out of the equation, Tom, and that's just to let inflation take that number down. You'll have a dollar that's worth nothing, but that's another opportunity. Inflate your way out of the actual number on paper. And I think she got something. It's our total debt, not the deficit, right? Did she say debt? Accumulated debt of okay, as of 2026, fiscal 2026. I concur with Tom. I don't think they're in the mood to curb social programs or their spending habits. So growing your way out of it's the only way. And we're fortunate that we have the ability and the resources to realistically have that as an option. I would just, and you touched on it, Tom, I would probably, if I were in charge, government is big enough. It grew 40% under the previous administration, who held court for 10 years. And we still have an abundance of our budget going to outside consultants. When you grow the bureaucracy to the size you did, and you still are paying your pals outside of government for good relations, that's a problem. I would probably also, short of a few critical organizations, I would defund all the NGOs. They're just organizations that are made for corruption. They're connected politically. They don't serve a purpose. If you look at dollars spent and services delivered, it'd be pennies on the dollar.
You know, could I counter Dave ever so slightly about corruption? I agree that there's a lot of it. NGOs, it really depends on whether the money is staying inside the country or not. Because if it does circulate within the country, even if it's NGOs are getting millions of dollars of corrupt money, it does get respent in the economy.
Yeah, but it's redirected where it shouldn't be. You know, that's the problem. Yeah, you know, the money, it's trapped within the economy, but it wasn't productive in what it was doing, really, other than probably on the consumption side. Yeah. The other point is when you talk about the amount of debt per person, a lot of the ability to handle that debt factors into two things: trust in the economy and the government and your currency. If your trust levels are high, you can sustain high levels of debt, and whether your debt is held internally or externally. So if you have to sell your debt to a foreign entity, you're much more vulnerable than if you are having your debt held by your own citizens. Japan is a classic example of that.
Yeah.
Their debt to GDP is what, over 200% of their GDP, but most of it's held by their own citizenry.
Yeah. So she should be worried, but there's not much that she can do about it.
Okay, so basically, long and short is, if you're old, well, you're going to die. So, a little bleak there. But if you're young, Denise, then the future's bleak. So
either way, you're screwed.
So
not necessarily. I mean, there could be a momentum change with the proletariat if we get fed up enough with the government and we throw the bums out and put in new bums. And maybe the new bums are more business centric.
Let's hope so. Let's hope that we can change this government. Okay, well, thanks, Denise, for that question. We always appreciate hearing from our vast audience, and that one from Montreal, Quebec. Comment below if you're concerned. Are you concerned about the level of debt in this country? The level of debt that they continue to pour on and add on to what is already a lot. All right, we're going to jump right to the prediction segment of today's show. We are, okay. This always gets everybody fired up. Today's prediction segment lands right in the middle of one of the most important political moments, in BC this year, maybe even this decade. The BC Conservative leadership race wraps up tonight with the announcement of the winner. And this isn't just a party choosing a new captain. This is a divided official opposition trying to decide what it wants to be, who it wants to follow, and whether it can hold itself together after months of internal chaos. With record high member turnout, which is, I guess, exciting in the scheme of things.
Is it?
And that field
Worrying.
From establishment conservatives to business voices to, well, controversy shadowed candidates. The stakes couldn't be higher. So which way does it go? Each of us is locking in a prediction on who takes the leadership. As a whole, I don't care. I don't care who it is. I just hope that the losers are not sore and can park their ego in a drawer somewhere and do the right thing for BC. And that goes for the general membership as well. Dave, who is going to win this thing? Who's coming in second? And in your opinion, do you think that the membership will rally behind the new leader?
Okay, so Ian Black's going to win, and Caroline Elliott is going to be second. I say that because those are the first two on the list that came up on my Google search.
Oh my God.
In-depth research, buddy.
I have absolutely not followed that leadership. I could care less. I get it. Park a leader in there, and the only way we're getting a change of government isn't with a sparkling new leader for the Conservative Party. It's if the incompetents that are running the province right now are seen to be what they are, and then the people will throw them out. They're not going to be voting a new government in. They are going to be throwing out an old government. So you know what? I could care less who wins. I just want a new government, and I don't think the leader is going to, unless they're absolutely fall on their face. I don't think that's the biggest factor in who is going to be running the province next time. It will be the current government being judged on their actions, and I think the baggage is accumulated enough that they're going to find it very tough to win another mandate.
All right. Well, I'm not even going to get you to comment on will they follow the leader, because I don't think
we all follow the leader unless you're the federal Conservatives and you're bought off to join another party.
All right, Tom, same questions for you. Who's first? Who's second? And will the membership get behind the new leader for the betterment of BC?
Yeah, it is. 2028 is the upcoming election. So Premier Eby's got more or less 2 years left in his mandate. Who knows what he's going to do? He'll be up to some tricks. He may even step down. He may pull a Justin Trudeau and step down so they can put a new dynamic leader with some new value systems in there. You very well may see that because his popularity is not too high. I should say I joined the Conservative Party. It was like $5 So I joined them and I voted. And I'm not so sure I was a super educated voter as much as I'd like to be. So I voted for Carrie Lynn Finley first, Carolyn Elliott second, I believe Ian third, and Yuri fourth, Peter fifth. I know Ian. I know him personally. I don't know the other candidates, but Karen Lynn Finley seems to be, other than maybe Ian, seems to be the most conservative of the conservatives. Carolyn Elliott, she's a professor. She's been with the hydro. She's definitely in the bureaucratic system, and I'm not so sure we need another big bureaucrat. Carolyn Finley seems to be more of a grassroots people's person. So, and she's got some solid experience federally. So that's why I cast my first vote for her. So I think it's going to go. I think it's going to go to her. But we'll see how the second and third runnings go. I can't remember what the system is called, where if the first round of ballots doesn't have a clear winner, 50% or more, then it goes to another vote again, and people recast based on what they've already chosen, because it's closed. It's not a live voting system. And it goes to the second, and until eventually you get a clear winner that's got over 50%.
Yeah,
So
no, it is actually when you voted, you had to vote a second and a third.
that's
So
right.
the tabulation will be done. If there's no clear winner after one, then your second gets calculated, and so on.
I think that's what I said. Maybe I didn't say it in great words, but I think that's how it's going to work. So Carrie Lynn Finley probably first. That'd be my guess. And if she can't get past the post, then probably a Carolyn Elliott would be my guess. And they will rally behind the leader, I think. So we'll see.
I really hope so. I mean, history is great advice. And anytime these right-wing parties, and this happened numerous times in Alberta, whereby, they get these right-wing fractions, and then they kind of go their own way, and then you get a liberal party that kind of comes up the middle. You got to think, okay, are they conservative enough? No. Well, are they better than the alternative? Yes. So I hope so too. I hope we can see some egos tucked away and some real wise decisions made to give the Conservative Party a real chance, because it never has had a real chance. Well, we'll see how that goes.
Well, you're in a country also that is left leaning. No matter what you look at, even going back a long ways to the social credit days, that was a coalition, and you had your conservative social credits and your liberal social credit members, and you have to have even the liberals were a coalition of center right and center candidates, maybe not too left, but if it's not a coalition, you're not governing. Like even the federal, you might sneak in, but you won't get a second term. Stephen Harper may have been a long-serving prime minister, but he could have served longer if he had come to the center a little bit more, maybe signaled that he was going to step aside. But the bureaucracy hated him, and that's what you're up against. So it's always tough for a conservative to be able to not only win but have some staying power.
It's called ranked choice voting. You're right. Down ballot transfers from the eliminated candidates, and that'll play a critical role in deciding who gets the final outcome. So a dark horse could come in depending on how it's split going in.
Yeah, that's true.
No, well, I said Ian Black, so don't worry.
I voted the same as you, Tom. Carrie Lynn Finley is number one, Caroline Elliott number two. I'm good friends with Ian Black as well, and I think he actually would make a great premier. I don't know. I don't think he has the base to sort of win it, so I just went with who I believe has a stronger base, and those two do seem to have a strong base. So anyway, okay, well, we're going to find that out shortly, maybe even before the end of the show. Who knows?
Yeah. Get your apologies ready.
If you've made it this far into the show, congratulations, everybody. Either you're thoroughly entertained or you've developed an unusual tolerance for our ramblings. Either way, why not make it official? Become a Now We Know Better insider. Hit the like button, share this pod with someone, or subscribe. Subscription is free. And don't forget to comment below when Dave is wrong. Be lots of comments.
And those
Are you guys
sponsors,
watching any of the
no advertising.
no advertising?
Huge.
This show is sponsored by FIFA World Cup. Please,
I'd like some government ad dollars, please.
don't hold it against us that ticket prices are $1,300 and up. That seems fair money for watching a soccer ball get kicked around a pitch. All right, that's our ad. Are you watching any of the FIFA? This coming up FIFA games that are going to be held in Canada.
Are we watching any?
My least favorite sport, really. Of course they'll win because it's my least favorite sport.
Who'll win?
I find it very.
Of course, who'll win?
No, we're not. We're not going to win the World Cup. Are you kidding me?
No, but no. When I say win, we'll maybe win a game or two. That'd be a big win for us because I don't think if we scored a goal yet, maybe in the last World Cup we did. But yeah, no, ticket sales are awful.
Apparently they are.
And you wait till you see what the aftermarket tickets prices are going to be. It's going to be I think it's going to be a bit of a disappointment for the organizers because there isn't that base level of love for soccer in North America. All the kids have played it. It's not as though it's a foreign sport. The participation levels are high, but it's not in the top four. And even the professional league we have now, it's kind of, their valuations are a bit of a shell game. And I can see why the Whitecaps are currently for sale, because if they can cash out on inflated values, why not?
Go to Vegas and I agree. So the games the games in Vancouver, for what it's costing the province and the federal government, tallies out to $1 million a minute.
Woo!
Was it $670 million or something? I saw. Was that right?
I thought it was 1.3 billion.
Okay, could be. Might have been part of the component of that.
Yeah, but it's like $1 million a minute for soccer in Vancouver. Do you think there's enough return to it? The governments are saying, well, we're going to get it in tax revenue from people eating in restaurants and staying in hotel rooms, and I just can't see that working out to be.
Well, I heard hotel bookings were down.
Hotel bookings are down. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
it sounds like socialist economics to me.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, in the whole Expo 86 was one thing where Vancouver was still a developing city. Everyone's heard of Vancouver now.
Exactly.
Everyone knows
to float a balloon anymore.
And we can't fit any more people in as it is anyway.
Precisely.
So it's like, why do we need to do anything? Maybe if you held this in, I don't know, Spuzzum, Merritt, 100 Mile, they're still growing. They're still growing. They have room to grow. Vancouver doesn't.
Well, we have capacity.
Infrastructure for holding God.
Yeah, fair enough. We have capacity to host these kind of things. These world events. We've done it. We did it in 2010 with the Winter Olympics, and it's been 16 years, I think, since we've hosted a very, very large world event like this. And I for one, I mean, if it doesn't cost us money, if it's net positive, then I think we should do this every decade.
Well, I agree. Well, you're never going to get the World Cup on a cycle like that, but with the Olympics, I think that whoever's hosted it recently and has the facilities, which cost an outrageous amount of money for the infrastructure, the costs, cycle 3 games through to make it somewhat of a payback. There'll still be supported, enough to make it economically worthwhile, and you don't have all the upfront costs like that you do for the first one going forward.
Yeah. Yep.
You get to get all these visitors come here and go home saying, well, I'm never going back there. That's way too expensive.
Oh yeah, I know. But we just booked hotel rooms in Seattle for the Blue Jays Mariners game on July 4th. So that's the 250th celebration of America's birth. And it was not cheap. It was like probably for 2 nights, $1,800.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, Canadian. So I mean, that's like $1,200 American.
No.
And that's not including the games. The games were reasonable. For
Is
baseball,
that a couple rooms, Tom?
150. Yeah, it is $150 a ticket US to go, and we're not behind home plate. I'll tell you that. That's like $1,000 or more. So I don't know. Is Vancouver overpriced? I think that a lot of these destinations are very expensive, and
Yes.
people that have discretionary income can afford them, but a lot of travelers just can't do it.
Yeah. Thank you, boys. Up next, we're diving into the topic that sits right at the intersection of symbolism, law, and lived reality in Canada. We hear land acknowledgements at school, shall I say ad nauseum. At events, we hear them at events and government meetings. But what do they actually mean? In a province built on complex property rights and treaties and unresolved claims, where are we? Today, Tom was taking us into that kind of tension, I guess, where ceremonial language meets legal framework and how those two worlds collide, overlap, or completely miss each other. It's a conversation that I personally believe is long overdue, and one that everyone is afraid to speak on, but one that shapes everything from development to reconciliation and peace of mind for the residents. Let's get into it. Tom, start us off.
Yeah, well, in Canada, at least, I don't know where it is around the rest of the world, but as you know, we settled and then colonized North America several centuries ago. Well, not that long ago, 300, 400 years ago. So for many Canadians, land acknowledgements seem harmless enough to honor the respect of the Indigenous history. But over the past decade, these acknowledgements have become a much larger conversation about Indigenous rights, title, and governance. The story really accelerated after the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released its final report in 2015, which was helped along by a false claim of, which I can't really, you could go to jail for saying this actually, but a false claim.
Be careful, it will be banned from YouTube. So
yeah, of a burial, unmarked burial graves in Kamloops and some of the other Catholic Indigenous schools that are turning out to be not unmarked graves, and I think they've even acknowledged that right now.
We're off YouTube.
Yeah. 4 years later, British Columbia became the first jurisdiction in Canada to pass legislation implementing the United Nations Declaration on Rights of Indigenous People, also known as UNDRIP, became part of our Charter of Rights. That legislation, called DRIPA, was passed unanimously by the BC legislature in November 2019. 2 years later, Ottawa followed with Bill C-15, making UNDRIP federal law. So supporters thought this was a great framework for reconciliations, and critics warned that the language was broad and could eventually affect resource development, permitting, even land ownership. Well, we move fast forward to 2025 with the Cowichan Tribe's decision that said that Aboriginal title could coexist privately with fee simple land, and that historical crown grants had not extinguished Aboriginal title. The court acknowledged Aboriginal title as a prior constitutional interest. And as a matter of fact, if you want to go and hunt and fish on Crown land, you could be blocked by the Aboriginals saying there's no more hunting and fishing here. You have to turn around and go back. And that's happening in the interior of BC. Property owners now subsequently worried that this could mean their homes, farms, businesses, and investments are going to be uncertain. It could affect the value of their property, even the title of their property. Cowichan leaders responded by saying they're not seeking to seize private property and we're not targeting homeowners. And the premier attempted to calm fears, stating that private property rights would remain protected and that homeowners would not lose their land. So that was a bit of a sigh of relief, but we were still getting real estate realtors putting caveats on their when they're contracting out to sell a home or buy a home. And I haven't seen it myself, but on the bottom of the agreements saying that there's some question as to whether title is actually guaranteed on the land you're planning to sell or buy. A few days ago, November 26th, I'm just about wrapped up here and then we can talk about it. A big sigh of relief, the Supreme Court of Canada effectively closed the door on Aboriginal title claims over privately owned land when it allowed a lower court ruling in New Brunswick to stand. Legal experts immediately noted the decision would have implications for the Cowichan ruling and future title claims across Canada. So where does this leave British Columbia? If you're thinking it's all over and you can go back to modifying your home, spending money on property improvements and stuff, well, the argument is far from over. UNDRIP and DRIPA remain law. Governments continue working towards reconciliation. The highest court has signaled that private fee simple ownership remains a fundamental pillar. So it's no longer whether reconciliation will happen. The question now is how governments, First Nations, property owners reconcile Indigenous rights with the certainty required for modern economies. And the conversation is really just at the starting gate right now. So it's not over, but it is a sigh of relief that fee simple seems to be ensconced in the Supreme Court decision. But what does that mean about federal lands, crown lands, and certain other properties that are owned by the province as well, which is really collectively owned by the people? So who knows where this is going, Wim? It seems to be going more in the right direction for people that actually are property owners. And it doesn't seem like the Indigenous are going to get negatively affected. As a matter of fact, the subsidies for under the Indian Act continue to roll in, and the Indigenous still are getting casino funding. I don't know. I'd like to see a different direction on this than what we've been doing by constantly funding Indigenous societies, but they still can't get clean water in some of their reservations. There's some weirdness going on here, and I'd like to see it resolved sooner than later.
Dave?
Oh my goodness. Where do I start? I have a problem with the concept of First Nations because it implies something they never were. They weren't nation states, they were tribes. Some of them bigger tribes than others, but by estimates, there was 300,000 Aboriginal people on the continent when the Europeans first came. So they were people that were basically living in the Stone Age. They hadn't invented the wheel or the written language. So they were, developmentally as far as their societal, not as far as being a human being, but their societal development was tens of thousands of years stuck in the past. They hadn't reached any of the trigger points that are needed to develop an economy. So to say that they were nations with all the structures that go around such a concept is a stretch. I don't believe in Truth and Reconciliation, the document. I think it's a narrative. I think it's a politically driven narrative, and particularly when you have to enforce it with law and potentially jail people for speaking truth. Then you've got a real problem and a real political piece of architecture. So that part of it I have issues with. I think that the further they push with and we have to remember none of the Cowichan tribe specifically in this case have expressed that they have no interest in going after private property rights. I want them to have no ability to go after individual property rights. I don't
Apparently
want
they
to
do
be at
now.
their discretion.
I think this said that.
So, you know, that's one thing. And I think there's a separation or an inability to separate the powers of all levels of government. At best, I would say that the Indian bands have the power of a municipality. That's it. They should have no more power to exercise decisions over resource allocations than any city or town, particularly when they receive the amount of funding that they receive from both the provincial and federal governments. And when we go to land acknowledgements, if they required me to stand up during a land acknowledgement, I would stay seated. And I'm sure most people would. It's a forced, it's forced.
Compelled speech.
Yeah, compelled speech. I mean, we're forced to listen to the compelled speech and accept it. And I've spoken privately with my wife. It's a slow, methodical way to justify what they're trying to drive home. I don't believe it's just a nice thing to say, that it doesn't hold a lot of value. I think it's tremendously dangerous that we allow this to occur. I watched a play in the winter, and before the start of it, there was a land acknowledgement. Well, I'm sorry, that just does nothing for me. I don't want to watch a hockey game that begins with a land acknowledgement.
I don't think they do that, don't they? That's
yes, right. Like it's unnecessary. It's it's performative, but I admire the native bands that are economically focused and do not want or need to rely on government largesse. And they're out there, but they're the minority.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that they're going to be looking at allowing people to maintain ownership. It'll transfer to a 99-year lease at $1 a year or something. Continuing to pay tax to the municipalities or cities, and they think, well, that's it doesn't impact anybody. Then you're out $1, no big deal. But that's not true, because if they did decide to do that, guess what? In a year, it's 98 years, and you're now 98 years worth of time left of ownership of that piece of property and home. So and continuing on from there, it devalues every year that you are part of that lease. So, I mean, there's ways that they can do this where it might sound not impactful, but it is impactful.
Well, of course it is. And to think that capital ownership is a bad thing, it's the reason why they're stuck in poverty most of the time. You have to allow the accumulation of wealth and capital, and the fact that they can't own the land that they're on, I would say transfer the land to them, and not the claims that the outrageous claims would cover 130% of the province, but allow them to have ownership and the ability to borrow against and lose property. This idea that there's a special status from now till eternity for a group of people is outrageous. Like it shouldn't be. Why has Western society become as affluent and dominant as it is? Because there's innovation. People can have ideas. They can borrow against assets that they have to hopefully increase the amount of capital that they have to work with. And that's how value is created. When you take the fact that you can't, that house isn't yours, yeah, you can live in it, and you at the behest of the tribal council, let's say, if you're a native person, or the government under a communist system, you're not going to care. You're not going to have any motivation. Your house is going to become run down. To to me, they would solve a lot of the problems if they allowed Aboriginal people the right to buy, borrow against, and potentially lose properties to better themselves.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, the perfect example is our shelter on Indian reservations that are funded by the federal government. And you drive on an Indian reservation, they're getting better now, but they were slums for the longest time because the natives, the indigenous didn't care. It wasn't theirs. They couldn't really improve it with a solid return or expected return on the investment. So they just became run down and uncared for. And so that's a classic example of how socialism can take over and just reduce everybody to like equal poverty for all, basically.
Well, exactly. And where's the incentive to, in most societies, when a mine is discovered in an area and a town springs up and there's employment and wealth that's created, and then the mine runs out, the load is gone, the town disappears. It becomes, unless there's another reason for it to be there, it disappears and the people migrate to areas of opportunity. When you have bands in Northern Ontario that have no economic reason to be there other than they're on their traditional lands, there may not be a good source for potable water or a way to bring in services or have services that function properly or are economic, or even a reason for the town to be there economically, other than being supported by an outside level of government. You're trapped in your own poverty dome over these towns.
There may be some argument, Dave and Wim, to say, listen, if you wanted your lifestyle before colonialism and settlers came, there should be maybe land allocated for that. So you can just live off the land. There's no electricity. There's no tools of implementation. You're just there may be some indigenous. So that's what I want. I want to hunt and fish, no guns, bow and arrow, no machinery, just like the Quakers do, or whatever. And there maybe should be an allowance for that, because I don't think there's very many indigenous that would actually want to revert to that lifestyle. But maybe we should honor that for some of them and give them some tracts of land where they can do that. The rest of them need to synthesize into the current economy and the current innovations in technology. You really can't have it both ways, where you're driving your Tesla on your Indian reservation and you're getting all kinds of funding to maintain your lifestyle because it's an indigenous lifestyle. That's just bullshit.
There's never enough money transferred to make anybody happy.
Never. It will never happen. That's absolutely right. Hey, I've got another topic, Wim, unless you want to chime in on this.
Well, we haven't got a lot of time left on this topic. So what is the next topic? And if it's short, we can do it.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be short. I like to give you guys updates on fusion power every once in a while, because I think that's going to be a real game changer for the world. Next to AI, which is going to need fusion power, it's going to drive fusion power even more because just of the pure power requirements.
Yeah.
So fusion power, guys, and I know you know this because we've talked about it, is what the sun and all the stars are driving their energy from, where instead of breaking up atoms, they fuse atoms together. Hydrogen atoms get fused together under intense gravitational pressure and temperature to become helium, and so on and so forth. That's actually how we got the periodic table of elements. Eventually, gold was result of fusion of lower atomic valued elements, and it takes a tremendous amount over millions of years for that to happen. We don't have time. We don't care about that. But what we do like to do is we like to fuse a heavier like deuterium and things like that, where we can fuse them into helium or something that will produce an output of energy when the fusion happens. But to achieve the fusion on planet Earth that's controlled and doesn't blow up like nuclear warheads do, they have to contain it. They have to bring the temperature even higher than the sun 150 million degrees centigrade. Why? Because we don't have that gravitational pressure. So when you give up the ability to have gravitational pressure, you have to increase the heat. And so now you've got material that have to contain that heat in a given area, and then you have to be able to take that heat and turn that into steam and then electrical generation. Generally, that part's very conventional and very old, but the fusion is new. So they're using magnetic fields, because you can't have these electrons bump up against material. It just destroys the material very quickly. So how do they get the plasma, which is a heated amount of this fusion material, from touching reactor walls and having sustained fusion? That's where we're at right now. We're working on this all over the world. It's a race to try to make this happen, and billions of dollars are being spent for this. Let me tell you how this ties into the race for the moon. You guys are hearing that China wants to put a man on the moon. The United States has reactivated its mission to Mars, and also lunar missions. Why are they doing that? Because there's something on the lunar surface that's very valuable for fusion that we don't have a lot of on the Earth, and that is called helium-3. Helium-3 is embedded in lunar regolith after billions of years of exposure to the solar wind. China, the United States, and other space programs are trying to get to that lunar extraction and bringing that material back to planet Earth so they can have an inexpensive, renewable helium-3 that will create and sustain these fusions for years to come. We don't have any commercial helium-3 fusion reactors today because we just can't get it. So it's going to unlock virtually unlimited energy for the planet, but we have to use lunar materials to really get that going. And it's going to be a race, and whoever manages to control that sustained reaction is going to have inexpensive energy to power the war machine, armies, navies, air force, drones. AI will turn that country, that civilization, into a very dominant force. So I wanted to bring you up to speed on that, and that's progressing. It's still a little ways away, but it's progressing right now, and that's the couple of hitch points that they're at: containment, the material, and then helium-3.
Hey, a quick little fact for you. So you touched on how elements are created, Tom, through the fusion of lighter elements into heavier elements. There are 3 elements on the periodic table that are there that weren't created through nuclear fusion. One is obvious, hydrogen, that occurred at the Big Bang, and helium. A certain amount of helium was also created and present in the first reaction. But there's one other element. Do you know what it is?
No, I don't, unless you're talking about like some of the man-made elements like Einsteinium and stuff like that.
Lithium.
Oh, okay.
Lithium is not a product of nuclear fusion.
Oh, cool.
Matter of fact, it's decayed in the sun. So all the lithium that we have is from the primordial Big Bang.
So Tom, why is it a race? Like, okay, so China gets there first and they start grabbing it, but the moon's a pretty big place. Well, US is going to be on that side over there. They're getting their material from over there. Is it a race, or is it just, well, the race is actually who can produce it fast enough to be able to make energy, and energy is going to be the win?
Well, I think the race is for the ability to run a reactor. The material is what they need, but whoever develops the technology to build the reactor is going to be at a tremendous advantage. Right now, China's at an advantage because it's using so much nuclear. So their base cost for their electricity is much lower than the United States. Well, to ratchet that by a factor of 10, when you can use a fusion reactor instead of a fission reactor.
Yeah, and the China, yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to guess just China is a year behind the States. I don't think they've lost. I think they're just a year behind.
No, they haven't lost.
If that was the case.
And they don't have as many regulatory requirements as the United States does, which Trump, for better or for worse, Trump is trying to streamline the regulatory requirements for fusion reactors so that they can get to the market as fast as possible. China doesn't have those because they're a one-party state, so they can do pretty much whatever the hell they want, and they do. We know that because of carbon emissions in China are exempted essentially until 2030 or even beyond. And they really don't care about the regulations on coal-fired plants, and so it's going to be a cultural battle, the West versus the East. And do we want a one-party system where we're socialists and we're controlled by a one-party chain of command, like China and like some other countries, or do we like the West's version of civilization where rugged individualism and innovation and adaptability can rule the day? And that's what's fusion could actually determine that.
Well, and I think that the U.S. administration has even implied that Europe needs to get its act together. The European Parliament's becoming a little too dominant over individual country states. And that kind of mirrors to me dictation from bureaucrats instead of a democratically elected government within each individual country having more power than the union itself.
So the question I didn't ask that the listener is asking is, okay, when are we going to have fusion power? For God's sakes, we've been talking about it for decades, and we do have fusion power right now, and in the test reactors, we've actually been able to produce more energy than we put in, barely, and then we can't sustain that for more than a minute or two. But you're going to find that that's going to extrapolate now. It's going to go like this. It's going to be like a hockey stick on how the technological implementation is going to happen. It's going to be faster and faster. What took 5 years is going to take 1 year. It's going to take 1 month. It's going to take 1 hour. It's on that scale. It's almost like CPU production.
Tom, I listened to a podcast, and they have the CEO of a company that is involved in bringing nuclear into the fusion reactors commercially onto the market, the actual building of the reactors. And they have a contract, I think it's with Microsoft, to start providing power in 2028. That's just tomorrow.
That's tomorrow.
In terms, it's not decades out. There's a firm timeline. So we'll see if they meet it.
Well, thank you, Friedbergs.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool. I'll keep you guys posted on that.
Thank you, Friedbergs. All right, coming up right now, we're going to be talking about climate phenomenon that's getting a lot of attention from experts, and for good reason. What's behind the buzz around this super El Nino? Dave has the story, and Dave, from what I understand, and a little bit that I've read, not that much, this is kind of global consequences here.
Oh yeah, it's funny you bring up David Friedberg. I was listening to the All In podcast last week, and I think we're pretty close in popularity. But David Friedberg was mentioning on his Science Corner about how this summer is going to be a record hot summer in the Northern Hemisphere. And I thought to myself, okay, well, I don't doubt that. But I thought, there's something not being told about this, and there's another part to this story. So if you recall back, and it was in 2022, there was a massive volcanic eruption in the South Pacific, and the volcano, it was a Hunga Tonga volcano, and it erupted. And it was a massive explosion. It produced, I believe it was 150 million tons of water vapor that was thrown into the atmosphere. Well, water vapor is a very effective greenhouse gas. And at the time, there was talk that this is going to warm the globe for years to come, and that there was just nothing until it dissipated out of the global system. There was nothing that we could do about it. And I thought, well, why isn't this being mentioned as an explanation for why we're going to be suffering such a hot summer? So looking into it, it actually turns out that event is now negligible to the point of 0.001% of a degree in its impact. And what happened was when the eruption took place, there was 150 million tons of water that was ejected into the atmosphere and vaporized. But there was also sulfites that were thrown into the upper atmosphere. And what they didn't realize is these sulfates create a shielding. So it has a cooling effect, and the water vapor has a warming effect. So in the end, we've gotten to the point where 4 years out, there is no effect. And that what I thought was an obvious explanation as to why we're going to have a warmer than expected summer fell on its face. So here's the real reason why we're facing such a hot summer. And we've had them on a more frequent basis now. And the biggest reason is the last couple of years, we've been in an La Nina weather cycle. So the Pacific Ocean temperatures were somewhat cooler than what would be expected. Well, we've left that, and we are building into an El Nino event and a super El Nino event. The temperatures now that are being recorded at the equator are surpassing the historic high points of 2015 and prior to that 1997. And I want to share with you a screenshot of a graph for the Pacific Ocean temperature. And you can see that the red represents the darker the red, how many degrees above normal the water temperature is. And you might think to yourself that, well, you know what, 3 degrees above normal. Well, what's that? Well, when we're talking about a body of water the size of the Pacific Ocean, we are talking about having a tremendous impact on global temperatures, and particularly in this case, we're talking about the Northern Hemisphere. So aside from having much warmer waters, what that does is it affects the Gulf Stream, and or the jet stream, I'm sorry. And that's the stream, the river of air that migrates or travels from the warm equatorial regions towards the polar regions. And what makes it interesting is the warmer the water temperature becomes, the weaker the jet stream is. So the reason for that is it's nothing more than temperature gradients. So if we look at it's an effect called the omega block. And what happens is, as the water in the south becomes warmer, there's less of a gradient between the warm air and the cold air at the poles, and that weakens the jet stream. The jet stream becomes lazy, and as it loses its strength, you can see it becomes wobbly, and they form blocks where the air doesn't move. It moves very, very slowly, and it's trapped. And we experienced in British Columbia, what was it, 3 years ago, the heat dome? I think it was 3 years ago now that we had the heat dome that we set, I think Lytton, British Columbia hit like 49 degrees. It was a record temperature in Canada. I think it was a record temperature for North America, if you can believe it or not. And the result of all of that heat, well, this is what happened to the town of Lytton, British Columbia. See the smoke over on the right?
Mm-hmm.
It's where the town was, and
Yeah.
it burned the town down. So the effect from it is very dramatic, and obviously has tremendous economic and ecological values. Now we're talking about this year an El Nino event with water temperatures that are stronger than or higher than in the past, and potentially more events that we experience periods of high temperatures. This is not just a situation that is being felt on the Pacific Ocean. We also have the same thing happening in the Atlantic. So there's three kind of furnaces for heat. There's the Pacific Ocean that generates the warm waters that slow the jet stream. There's a jet stream itself that is now weaker. And then in the Atlantic, we have the same thing occurring on the other side of the North American continent, where again, the water temperatures are mimicking what's being felt on the west side of the continent. So it is now considered by Environment and Climate Change Canada that the probability of a heat wave this year is at 99%.
Wow.
Yeah, particularly when they factor in the human-induced greenhouse gases that has raised the floor, making it much more likely for these events to occur, because the base load of the gases is much higher than what has been experienced traditionally. Not in geologic times.
What's the definition of a heat wave? Like 20% above normal temperatures, or
I don't know. Well, what's the separation of a heat wave and a heat dome? I mean,
a heat dome just a wave, it goes through pretty quick, and a dome hangs around for
it's trapped, right? That's but I mean, and it shows you, if you look at it, just in a logical sense, you would think that, well, Death Valley, California, or Arizona or Nevada, you're going to find places there that cook, and they do. I mean, I think, Wim, you maybe know better than I, but I believe now we're at the point where we're talking 40-degree plus or 100 degrees Fahrenheit plus days in the desert now are well over 100 days in a year, which is much greater than has historically been the case. Now it starts much earlier. It's not June. It can be in April, late April and May, where the 100-degree plus temperatures occur.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same in Phoenix. I mean, they're hitting 100-degree days now, starting in April.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. My point was going to be that that heat dome had the effect that the one spot in British Columbia, Lytton, recorded the highest temperature ever recorded in North America.
Yeah,
like that's
even Death
like
Valley?
a magnifying glass.
Wow.
at its simplest, a heat wave is a prolonged period of abnormally and uncomfortably hot weather relative to what is expected for that specific region and at that time of year.
So they don't attribute a specific percentage.
It lasts for 2 or more consecutive days and is often accompanied by high humidity.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Wikipedia.
Well, and there's the media love to portray everything in the starkest terms, the most dramatic way possible. I was watching weather forecast. Well, it was a news forecast about the weather, and they were commenting a few days ago on these unseasonably high temperatures in Europe, and that some of the places on the continent had reached like 34 degrees at the time, which, that's warm. I wouldn't call it blazing hot, but it's certainly warm. And
Sure.
then the commentator says, and temperatures on the thermometer in the sun hit 42 degrees. And I'm thinking, okay, what's so special about that?
Yeah.
That's like when they say, well, the temperature is -8, but it feels like -20. Well, but the temperature is -8. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow, there's that. So does that mean that agriculture around the world is going to take on a new dimension? Some places that could grow avocados can no longer do that, and other ones that couldn't can, that sort of thing?
It does, but you got to be careful with that. I've heard that years ago that we're going to have citrus groves in the Lower Mainland. Yeah, all it takes is one polar vortex, and the whole picture has changed. Yeah, you might be able to get away with some of that for a few years, but there's going to be 1 year in 6 or 7 that's cold enough to do damage, even in places like Florida and there's orange groves in Arizona. You need a certain amount of cold, particularly for citrus crops, to have a quality product. It pumps the juice up in them, but it's a fine line between getting a cold snap where it gets down to 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and now you've done damage to the citrus itself, rather than just enhancing the quality of the crop.
It's interesting. It ties into my fusion topic from previous, where if we can get unlimited amount of power going, you can have desalination plants produce unlimited amounts virtually of water in places that were previously desert.
Oh, yeah. Well,
you've got the bloom.
You go back to that topic, Tom, and you think of not only some of the benefits that are obvious, but solving problems that take tremendous amounts of compute power. You throw enough compute power at something, you can solve a lot of problems. And that's, there's lots of benefits that will come out of that. Energy is tremendously important, and whoever controls it at the cheapest cost is going to be the effective leader of the world.
Yeah, and it's going to make it should equalize everything out, but it's not going to do that. We know that.
So, fellas, it's going to be a warm summer again on the in the Northern Hemisphere, and particularly in Western Canada. They specifically mentioned that we could be facing a serious wildfire season again, and I can see that's all possible. We just hope that it doesn't turn out to be the case, and that we can get through the summer months with as little damage as possible.
What was the winter like, Dave? I know I'm taking you off topic a bit, but was it an unseasonably warm winter in Canada?
Well, yeah. It was another indication of an El Nino winter where there was lower snowpacks. There wasn't as much snowfall. Atmospheric rivers are also part of this equation. So when you get uneven distributions and heavy distributions of water, which is, as damaging. We all know we suffered both under a heat dome a few years ago, and the effects of an atmospheric river that basically caused billions of dollars of damage to our highway infrastructure, specifically the Coquihalla Highway that connects the British Columbia Lower Mainland into our interior. It's one of 3 of the main corridors into the interior. And that wiped it out. It was amazing how fast they recovered and got the road temporarily up and running. But all of these things have impact. It's not just summer heat; it can be off-season rain.
Yeah, it is interesting. Okay.
All right, let's move on. Thank you, Dave. Interesting. But let's lighten things up after that serious discussion. This seemed like a negative episode today, doesn't it?
Yeah, quite, isn't it?
A lot of
And
things.
claim settles.
But-
settles.
But I have something to cheer up everybody. Has the dodo bird not gone the way of the dodo bird? Has it? Scientists are now trying to unextinct the dodo because apparently Jurassic Park wasn't enough of a warning. The short version, they grab DNA from the old dodo bird remains,
Mhm.
patch the missing bits with genes from the closest living relative, and then use high-tech bird in vitro fertilization to produce this new dodo and try to convince the modern pigeon to become a very confused surrogate mother. But do you guys think we should be putting effort towards unextincting creatures from the past, Dave?
Well, it's not accurate to say that you're bringing extinct species back, because even though you have genetic material and DNA you can extract the DNA from, you are splicing together missing components from other related species. So it's by definition not the same. You're creating a new species, or a new species, but it's not the same species that was extinct. Probably similar enough. There was that wolf that they just did, the dire wolf, I believe
Yeah,
it was, they used the same technique, and they created a wolf that is very, very similar, probably, you know, as close as you're going to be able to get to the extinct version. But it's not the same. So having said that, I still think it's a good idea. I
You're
think,
being kind of a
I think it's
downer there.
worth-
I thought we'd see the dodo bird again, and you're saying no, not really.
Well, you won't see the dodo bird in actual fact, but you'll probably see something that's close enough that it's worthwhile.
Tom, should we just leave the past be the past and leave extinct animals be extinct?
Yeah, extinction is an interesting term. I mean, if you look at evolution, what's the same as it was 10,000 years ago? I mean, you look at the current domestic chicken, it's evolved so much, it's barely recognizable from its ancestor because it's a staple of protein around the globe. Are they focusing on the dodo bird to be another source of protein? Is that why they're bringing it back?
No, they're just bringing it back for the sake of scientific experiments.
Oh, interesting. Well, I mean, I mean, Jurassic Park always loves to show us the dramatic and theatrical way that things like this can go very wrong. It could. I mean, you know, can we bring DNA back? But we've got the beautiful thing about human civilization is that we are always moving forward. We have critical thinking skills that no other species, as us, the apex predator, have, that allow us to adapt to our environment and improve our environment and engineer our environment, which is what we're doing. And you can't really stop that. All you can do is regulate it to a degree and hope that the human intention is always positive for the betterment of society than to its detriment. You're going to have some step backs, of course.
And Tom, I agree. I think it's a judgment call. If it makes sense to bring something back for a specific reason, then do it. You know, it's interesting to note that 99.9% of the species that have ever lived are extinct.
Are gone.
So they're gone. So that is just the way that evolution works, and has worked quite well. So, you know, that part of it is just, you know, things go, that's a normal part of the natural cycle. It's just when it's accelerated during events, and the human being has put pressure on species like no other climatic event, because most extinctions, mass extinctions, occurred when there was dramatic changes in the environment, usually a climatic eruption or a meteor or something of that nature, where animals couldn't adapt. And it's extremely hard on bigger animals. The larger the animal, the more of impact that's felt. All the small animals do much better after an extinction event, and they start the whole cycle again. So yeah, well, I think it's a good idea. I think it's something that is a judgment call, and you have to use good judgment.
It's the beauty of humanity. I agree.
There can be, I'd like to raise more whims, because I think if that's a possibility, I think that would be.
You know, what's interesting is with all the abilities and all the scaring of, like, it's a genetically modified, what you're eating has been genetically modified. Okay. Sounds bad, sounds scary. So there's a big pushback against anything that's GMO. But when it comes to a cure for a disease that involves genetically modifying, either introducing a missing gene sequence or enzyme into the body, well, that's quite okay, because that's therapeutic. That's curing a disease. Well, the same scientific know-how and knowledge is also used to grow bigger or more nutritious foods that actually make more land available for wildlife when you need less of it to grow food. But there's a pushback on that side of the equation.
Oh, there always will be, and that's fair. You have to have the yin and the yang. It's just the way it is. You have to have the innovators and you have to have the detractors. The detractors are there because they can't innovate, but they still keep the innovation in check to a degree. I mean, look at the amazing things that we've got. I mean, poverty has been reduced worldwide, and we've managed to get clean water to many places because of fuel and energy resources. It's generally all good. We haven't blown up a nuclear bomb since 45, even though we have the capacity of doing that easily. That's because of the good side of humanity, if you will. Those aren't just detractors or innovators. That is just the good spirit of humanity that's prevailing. And I think it'll continue to.
Interesting. All right, boys. Moving on. Comment below if you are in favor or not in favor of unextincting. It's an interesting topic. We should go more into that down the road. We'll see. But right now, ladies and gentlemen, it's that moment you've been waiting for. Point, counterpoint.
Yay.
Segment of intellectual chaos and emotional overcommitment. It's a perfect way to end the show. Fun, fiery, and unhinged. Just unhinged enough. Here's how it works. I secretly decide on a topic. I then announce the topic to Dave and Tom shortly, of which they have no prior knowledge. I will then assign them a side to argue. They may totally be against having to argue that assigned side, but who cares? That is the game. And best of all, I get to play judge and jury, deciding who argued their side better. Whether I agree with their argument or not doesn't matter. This is a game with no participation award. Do or die here. They die on their debating sword. Here's the topic. Are you two ready?
Well, yeah, we are.
Ready?
I think we're ready.
All right, buckle up. Canada currently has about 74,000 failed refugee claimants in the country. That is basically someone who arrives in Canada and asks for protection, saying they can't safely return to their home country. And although not a resident, citizens, or they're not a resident or a authorized visitor in Canada, they still receive government funding healthcare. Now, why does this happen? Why should it happen? Or what does it say about our system? Now, this is not for emergency care, as Canadians would provide that to anyone who needs emergency help. We're talking just general health care. You know, you got earwax. You know, your your tonsils are a little inflamed. Whatever it is this a compassion discussion or a monetary discussion or other? Dave and Tom are about to dive into it head first, armed with their opinions, half facts, and whatever confidence they woke up with this morning. Dave, as I normally say, you're a heartless bastard, but today you are heartfelt and believe that as long as these failed refugee claimants are in Canada, us Canadians will supply them medical attention and support. You believe that to be the best interest of humanity, the best interest of Canada, and taking care of all whoever may be here visiting our wonderful country. Tom, today you are the heartless bastard and want to deny foreigners access to our already strained healthcare system. Your grandmother, your mother, they are out there not getting the care they deserve because the waiting time is so long. Who knows what can happen to them? They haven't paid for any portion, that's the refugees haven't paid for any portion of the medical system. So take a hike is what you're thinking. I know. All right, debaters, take your positions and remember, keep it civil, keep it clever, and keep it clean. This is a family show. Tom, you are up. Let's hear what you've got to say.
So I'm saying that we need to get, we don't want to help them, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, we can't be paying these people for these people to get medical attention in Canada. Not emergency care, just general medical attention.
Yeah, and you're talking about failed claimants.
Failed claimants. They've come here. They can't go back to their country because it's too dangerous for them. They weren't convincing enough, and so Canada said, no, you got to go back.
Yeah. The problem with offering too many social programs to any kind of refugees is that they want to take advantage of it. That's human nature. If I've got free money and it's just over across that fence, you may not have ever been a fence jumper in your life, but now if that money's attractive enough to you, you're going to jump that fence. You're going to get over there one way or another. Even if they don't belong there, you're going to get over there. So we're attracting failed refugee claimants. There are some good ones, of course, but the failed ones are probably trying to finagle their way over here with corruption, fraud, cheating, stealing, and we're rewarding them by giving them free cell phones, free this, free that, free health care, so that they can nurse themselves back to Olympic status, athleticism. And we're paying for all this. The thing is, it just keeps rewarding bad behavior. And if you've raised a child, or if you've been a child, I'm not sure you've been a child, Wim, in your life, but if you had been, you realize that if you can get away with something as a kid, you're going to do it again and again until someone says you can't do that anymore. Go to your room, you're suspended, you have to face, whatever. You have to face the music. But we're not doing that in Canada with failed refugees. We're saying there is no music to face. Come on in. We open the door to you and you're allowed to take advantage of our good graces because you know what? We have shitty parenting skills as a country. We don't understand that we're actually creating the problem we're trying to solve. This gets back to these countries saying, you got to come to Canada. It's easy peasy. This is free money. It's easy peasy to come here. Even if your claim doesn't get accepted, it doesn't matter. It's going to get rejected, but they may not kick you out. And in the meantime, you get all this free stuff. So come on down. You're the next contestant on the social benefit is right. That's why it has to stop.
All right. Good argument. I like it. Dave.
Well, I can see the horns coming back into his skull over there. Listen, we're talking about a group of people that have risked a lot, left their homeland because of situations beyond their control, and at tremendous risk to themselves, they emigrated to a country that is foreign to them on the hope that they could find a better life. And I can understand why that would be a motivating factor for them to come. Most of them probably lost everything they had in the journey, and they arrived and entered. Hey, this is my part. This is my section. So they applied. and entered a system that can be cold-hearted, unforgiving, bureaucratic.
Oh my God.
And when they lose their claim, now you have a group of people that are destitute, probably can't afford to go home, and are barely able to make ends meet. They probably maybe have had a child since they've arrived in Canada.
Or
They're
sick.
looking for employment. They're probably providing services that no other native-born Canadian can or would want to provide. So they're actually contributing to the economy of the country.
Oh, yeah.
I'd say a lot of them are taxpayers, but they don't meet the threshold that gives them political clout. To deny them health care and basic coverage for, what any human would think is minimally required for them to have dignity. Tom, come on.
That's not even what we're talking about. You know better. This is the We Know Better podcast.
I mean, you'd rather have them all in poverty. You probably build buildings that would be in any other name a jail, just to herd them up while you're waiting for the transport plane to load them up and ship them out.
So
I
let me
mean,
ask you.
that is a heartless. We're a country that's built on Judeo-Christian values, and to have as hard a heart, a black coal lump that sits behind your rib cage, I just can't believe it.
Well, let me ask you a question, David. Let me ask you this. So for every refugee claimant that gets denied or doesn't come into our country to get all these wonderful benefits, somehow that's Canada's fault. We are responsible for the world. That's what you're saying. For everyone that doesn't come in here and is denied, we're responsible for that, and that's our fault. That
we have an obligation as a signatory to the United Nations agreement on displaced peoples, refugees, to honor the minimum standards that are to be provided to those people. I take these people at their word. I believe that when they left their situation, their circumstances.
Now you're forgetting one minor thing. He's talking about failed refugees.
We're so dire that they had to leave their homelands. And Tom, I think there's too many of you type in the immigration.
Well, here's the you people comment coming up.
I mean, you probably sideline as an immigration adjudicator.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's I think most people are honest, and you think most people are trying to take advantage of the system, and that, I think, is what separates you from me.
I'm just saying there's cookies in the cookie jar for taking, and you guess what happens? Natural course of events.
Well, boys, it was a good debate. I liked it. I would like to. I mean, if you're going to let people in, and they're going to be, Dave, you believe that they should be taken care of medically, then, I would have liked to have you had sort of some argument or something in there that would suggest that we do have to mitigate having these people come in, because, resources are not infinite. But you didn't go there. Tom made a very good point, is when you do give an inch, people take a mile sometimes. So you got to be careful on that. I can't say either is right or wrong, but this time, Tom, you argued stronger. Dave, you got to let your feelings get out of the way of your debating and actually
try not to laugh.
It's a tough one. Yeah, try not to laugh.
Acting sometimes, and you did a very good job.
Well, on this one, I'm almost glad I lost.
Almost glad. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, there you have it. Okay, well, not bad. Final parting words, my boys.
Parting word.
I have a hard out at 4:00, so you better wrap this up quick.
Oh, we got to wrap this up quick then.
We got to wrap it up quick.
That's
No,
what-
I'd let. Did we do prediction? Oh yeah, we did with the leadership thing. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, you were here.
Yep, I was here for that.
I'm gonna I was watching Global, waiting to see if they have any announcements. That there's nothing here yet, but it's only 4:00 there. They said 5, so it might be a little early on that. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us, listening, and watching responsibly. Kind of hit that like button, share this with someone, or better yet, subscribe. We are en route to being within the top 100 podcasts in the world, thanks to you, and we appreciate that. And we are still ad-free. Can you believe it? It's been a tough grind, but we're working our way through it. But for David Vanderzalm, Tom MacDonald, and myself, Wim, we will see you next time on the Now We Know Better podcast. Bye for now.
Bye for now, guys.